So Pamela is from Amaze, which is the peak body for autism, and she's here to talk a little bit about the NDIS and how that can help anybody with a permanent disability. Pamela, how are you?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Connor. Thanks for having me here
problem.
today.
Thank you very much for joining us. So Pamela, I'll let you kick it off, and I just wanted to ask simply, what is the NDIS?
Sure. So the National Disability Insurance Scheme is a national scheme, so across the whole of Australia, which is specific funding for somebody that has a permanent disability. So I won't talk just about autism because obviously, I mean, I work for Amaze, which is the peak body in Victoria, but across all the disability spectrums. So we're talking about intellectual disability, we're talking about MS, hearing impairment, vision impairment, a whole range of congenital conditions as well, cognitive disabilities. So there's a whole range of disabilities that are funded, but also if you have limited capacity to carry out your everyday life, then you just need to go to your doctor, get evidence about that, the limited capacity that you have, and you can put in an application form, which is called an access request form for the National Disability Insurance.
Okay, cool. And so who is eligible then for this?
So you are eligible if you are obviously born in Australia, a permanent resident, and you know, you are, it's from 0 to 65.
Okay.
So the scheme cuts out, it doesn't, it actually doesn't cut out. It just means if you're over 65, you can't apply for the NDIS. You are then actually have to apply through aged care services. So, but once you're on the scheme and you are under 65, you can choose to stay on the scheme for the rest of your life. Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay. So the 0 to 7 cohort, so for children from 0 to 7, it's called Early Childhood Early Intervention, so ECEI. It still sits under the NDIS umbrella, but there are different organisations, or they're called partners, NDIS partners, that actually execute the scheme on behalf of the agency, so the federal agency.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
And so could you tell everyone a little bit more about how you apply for it then?
Sure. So you can apply a couple of ways. You can ring the 1-800 NDIS number, or you can jump on their website and download the application form, which is actually called an access request form. So it's a document that needs to be filled out and sent back to the NDIA with evidence of your disability. Okay. And what we mean by evidence is it needs to be signed off either by a specialist treating specialist, an allied health practitioner, or you can attach reports and assessments that talk about the impact of your disability and prove that you have a lifelong disability.
Okay.
So it's all about proving and evidence.
Okay, fair enough.
For you to access the scheme. So once you download that form and you attach all that information, then you can send it back to the NDIA and they assess your eligibility. So it's not a seamless process.
Okay.
Okay. So we always advise families, individuals that are applying for the scheme to contact their peak body. So if you have autism, if you're autistic, contact Amaze. If you have another type of disability, so you might have a young child with Down syndrome, you can either contact the Association for Children with Disability, or you can contact Down Syndrome Victoria, and they can also assist you with the form.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so
Yeah.
often we find that families do trip up a little bit at this initial point, and the NDIS is a fairly new scheme, so it's only been around for a few years. So it's still they're still ironing out.
They're still
You
learning
know,
how to do it themselves. Kind
they're
of,
still
yeah.
learning. Yeah, they're still learning how to fly the plane.
Okay, fair enough.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. And so in terms of the actual compensation or how much money people can expect to get from it, like could you explain a little more?
Yes, so it's all individualized. So and it depends on your capacity, and it depends, obviously every disability is different and your capacity is different. So I can't put a figure amount on what what you can expect to get.
Okay.
But I can talk a little bit about the funding and how it works and what they can fund and what they won't fund.
Brilliant.
So there's a few things that they'll fund. They'll give you funding for a support worker to help with your day-to-day activities, your day-to-day living. They'll give you funding for your therapy. So this is all evidence-based therapy. So occupational therapy, physiotherapy, psychology,
Okay.
also speech therapy. So they'll give you funding for that. They'll give you funding for equipment, some equipment and assistive technology. So funding if you need orthotics, funding if you need a bed rail, funding if you need a shower chair. There's also funding for home modifications. And that's, that's really for people that have a physical disability. And they'll give you funding for car modifications. So they won't pay for the car, but they'll pay for the modification to the vehicle.
Okay.
So if the vehicle's less than 7 years old, you can apply for funding for your wheelchair to go into the vehicle. Okay, so it's got to be a suitable vehicle for that. So there's things like that. If you're older, they can put money in your plan to help you find a job. They can put money in your plan to help you move out of home and into independent living. So there's all sorts of different things that they will fund.
Okay.
They will fund some social and recreational activities. Okay. And the scheme is goal-based. So depending on what your goals are, so your goal might be to increase your independence. Okay, so then they will put funding in there that supports those goals. So that might be for a support worker to help you become more independent in the community. It might be about a support worker teaching you how to become independent in using public transport.
Okay.
Or learning how to shop, or assisting you with your cooking. So it's all goal-based.
Okay, I get you. And so there is quite a lot of situations that you are eligible for it. So it probably is a good idea if you have any sort of a disability like that to apply for it, because it obviously is massive help.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and then, I'll give you an example, and it's not even about autism. A friend of mine, her daughter unfortunately developed a very serious condition. She got this disease, and the disease attacked the antibodies in her system, and it's like a 1 in 10 million cases in the world. Unfortunately, she ended up becoming very unwell, and ended up not being able to physically move. She ended up in a wheelchair. Okay. She had a whole lot of treatment. So this person went from being a very healthy, functioning, 45-year-old, lady, to all of a sudden being, confined to a wheelchair, not being able to get out of bed independently, not being able to move and shower. And it was this condition. So, and I can't remember the name of the condition. So it does slip my mind, because it's one of those ones that, it's not very common.
Quite rare.
Yeah. So she applied for the scheme and became eligible, and, she's getting a lot of help in the home. She has home cleaning, she has yard maintenance, as part of her package. She has therapy, so she has physiotherapy, rehab. She has occupational therapy to start to build some strength in her arms and her hands. She's also part of a trial for a drug treatment, which is working really well. And slowly, she's progressing. She's got some funding in there to help her with employment. So she wants to get back to work. And there's funding in there for an employment service to assist her with that. So that's just one example of where, her life has changed very quickly and very suddenly.
Massive difference, yeah.
Massive, and also huge deficits in what she's been able to achieve every day. So things have changed for her. So that's just one example of where the scheme has been, amazing for her. Absolutely amazing. And if you had, rewinded to, say, 5 years ago, so if we were in 2015, this scheme didn't exist for her. So there would have been very limited supports for this person. And at the moment during COVID in Victoria, even Scott Morrison the other day, he got up and said, if you have an NDIS package, you can use it flexibly. So that means you can get in, more support workers to help you if that's what you need. And obviously we've got to be very careful about who we're allowing into the home. And that's a huge issue for this workforce, for support workers as well. But that's been an interesting thing, that even Scott Morrison has recognised that there needs to be a lot more flexibility with this scheme. So yeah, it's an amazing scheme, and we're very fortunate in this country, in Australia, to have it. We are very fortunate.
Well, look, Pamela, thanks very much for all that info. I suppose that it's fair enough that if anybody maybe wanted to find out a little bit more or had any more questions, they could maybe get through to us through our Facebook, and then we can maybe contact you, or
sure.
maybe I could put up your details and we could let people contact you directly.
Absolutely. And I just want to say to families that if you you have any questions about your children, that if they're autistic, if you suspect or you're not sure, you want to find out some more information, we have an autism information service. There is a 1300 number that Connor will send around. That number can be reached. You can reach that number Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and our website, www.amaze.org.au. Lots of different information there about school, supporting children in school, accessing services, NDIS, you name it. There's a whole lot of stuff in there. So yeah, thank you, Connor.
Thank you very much, Pamela. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.